After 9 years of competitive League of Legends, Europe once again holds the title. If you'll indulge me, I've been around for nearly 10 years of professional League of Legends, and I'd like to talk you through my story of trials and tribulations being a fan of Europe. Because hey, we won Season 1. Fnatic took down against All Authority at DreamHack in Sweden, and yay, we won Worlds. Does it really count? The true conquerors of the planet South Korea didn't even have a server, and to the rest of the planet, League of Legends technically didn't even exist yet. We stepped forward into Season 2, and I put my faith behind Moscow 5 and CLG EU, and I was let down. We stepped forward into Season 3, and I was very fortunate enough to turn my fandom, my love for League of Legends, into a job. I got to step in front of the camera and share my voice and thoughts and feelings with you and everybody else in Europe. Moving into the World Championships, Fnatic took down Cloud9, only to fall to Starhorn Royal Club. So I get let down again 2 years in a row. Now, I'd rather forget about 2014 because despite a strong alliance here in Europe, we just kind of went kaboom. You're starting to see a trend. You're starting to see some feelings where I'm just hopeful, but let down. That is until the true euphoria was born. In 2015, both Fnatic and Origin stepped up to the plate to challenge the world. They made semi-finals. They went to Brussels in front of thousands of fans. In front of me. And they failed. They sucked. So I gave up. That's it. We're done. Europe's good. Fine. We're not the best. We're not going to win. If we're fighting for second place, that's what we're going to talk about. Because you know what? Europe, they're always hard to kill. They make playoffs. Europe can get behind a bunch of misfits that nobody believed in, that nobody could thought make the distance, make the strongest team on the planet work for it. But I was always faithful. I was always a fanatic of Europe. And even though Fnatic made finals, the European team faltered at the final step. I was done until 3.5 weeks ago. G2 Esports made the world bow to them. They already made Europe bow. The kings of Europe conquered the planet. And from this European fan, I just want to say, thank you, G2.
The champions from Europe. It's Moscow 5, BenQ.
Moscow 5, BenQ. They are one game away from qualifying themselves for that grand final.
I think this is the first time we have seen them not be able to answer a strategy. Your first semifinal match going into a best-of-3 between Taipei and Moscow 5. There goes the exploding cast. Looks like they will initiate this fight on. The turret goes down. Darian gets caught out. He can't even ultimate the crescendo, stopping them from using the abilities. Diamond Prox goes down. The inhibitor is open. Taipei Assassins look to take down the last Nexus turret, and they will drop Moscow 5 from the League of Legends Championship playoffs.
Hootie has arrived, and holy crap! Everyone's dying in this fight. Reckless goes down. Zatai gets a bunch back, but Hootie, the double, the triple kill, the quadra kill for Hootie.
And Fnatic will advance to the semi-finals.
Welcome to the 2015 League of Legends World Championship semifinals.
This is the fight of the game.
The teleport is coming down for Smeb, and the dragon looks like it will get secured. Picked up by Fnatic, but Feathervin is forced away. Smeb will not find the kill, and Feathervin jumps in the pit. They've traded AD carry for support, but Feathervin's down as well. And the cool, calm, collected KOO Tigers will pick up their first victory. Fnatic get aced and lose the Baron. Feathervin's in trouble. He's been bounced up, exhausted, and he's down. That's the last hope for Fnatic. And KOO Tigers are 2-0 against Fnatic. And the fire of Fnatic on home soil looking to be extinguished. KOO will get themselves the ace, will get themselves the base.
Game 1 of the semifinals. South Korea's SK Telecom T1 versus Europe's Origin. What a round right now. He's still running away through the wards. Pops Summoner Teleport. Wolf and Bangi in pursuit. Peke goes down. The fight resumes 3v5. Soaz can't even kill off EasyHoon. This will be the game. Slow but has the gray health. Niels will go down to Bang. Takes the wrong state. And oh, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. There's no stopping him now. It's time for SKT to make it to the finals undefeated.
O técnico, Young.
Here comes a play on a Baker, exhausted. Zon keeps away from the wall, not quick enough to get slow. There's a flash to chase. First blood into Perks. Going for Peanut. Now Minty on the wrong side of this one. Pops the shield, won't matter. Peanut flash to chase. Gonna get that one picked up. Bang next one on the block, but he's gonna survive. Right now, Hootie flashing out of the Nexus turret, hoping to take them all down, and he will do so. No one dead for SKT, and the dominance continues. The Perks and Baker looking to take him out. One more shot, the flash, the auto. It should be a trade kill, but Trick is dead. And the European LCS's G2 Esports have tied up the series.
The championship. G2's redemption is nice, but SKT going through the crucible of the mid-season invitational to lock it down as the best team in the world.
Are you ready?
And they're taking the entirety of the fight. Hillsong tries to get away, but Whipple's already going to be brought down, and Broxa and Reckless stand only to fall. Whipple first as Rookie makes the dive into the back here now as well with the ultimate. Caps trying to get himself away, but he's only going to be postponing the inevitable. Jackie Love continues going further into the back. Reckless already down. Caps going to be following him now as well. It's a clean ace for nothing. Broxa and Fnatic need to take down the Baron. It is going to be ultimately secured by Broxa as Rookie goes into the pit to pick up one. Won't be able to find the second. Shut down over to Fnatic. Caps mowed down by the Shy and Ning as now Broxa's in some trouble over the wall. Goes the Alistar, and Fnatic will be aced as Jackie's in the base. Reckless is down. Broxa's away. IG are on the Nexus, and Invictus Gaming are your 2018 World Champions.
Oh, I mean, it still hurts. Every single one of those still hurts, and I can put myself in my own shoes when I was watching at the venue or somewhere else. Every single time, they got close, and then they just kind of completely fizzled out.
The thing is, for me, the ones that sting the most are the earliest.
Yeah.
2012, I distinctly remember Moscow 5 sucking in the semifinals. Alex Ish playing on Gragas in mid back when he was AP and insta-giving people. He missed so many casks. I can see casks being missed at inhibitor turrets. And after that, I just came to expect EU to lose.
Yeah.
That you just become numb to it. You know, like the hope is there, but it always felt like I was playing for second place. It felt hollow.
Yeah, playing for second place, because I always thought EU's really good, you know? They're good. But I never thought they are so good that they can win the whole thing. And throughout many years, I think the Heartbreak was even bigger because they got so close.
Yep.
And for me, that clip of 2015, when Worlds was in Europe, when two teams got to the semifinals, when OG came out of a very
Brussels,
strong
no less.
in Belgium, in Brussels, and then OG was up versus SKT, and it was a disaster. And then Fnatic, the 2015 Fnatic, was up
18-0 summer Fnatic
up
against
versus the
Fnatic
Tigers.
Black, of course, being Origin with Peke, and so it was like those. That was the golden year. That was the year that EU had to beat.
Yeah.
And I think we've just started it. I think 2019 is there, but you know it's much further forward because I cannot quite put myself into the world where we have the best team in the world. Like this has not happened, right?
No.
We're in uncharted territory.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I can say that, but like, it's a thing, right?
Of course you can. And it's weird because for so long, I was like, okay. And it was kind of fine with it, you know? It's like, if it never happens, it never happens. We're still good. We're still doing our thing. And I think this G2 victory, it awakened a lot in us.
Yes.
G2 himself, they probably knew they could do it. But also, Mithy has come out and said, I believe again in that we could make this happen as a region, that we could win a world championship.
So I went into MSI thinking that G2 could make finals but weren't going to win it. That was my expectation.
Same.
I saw them lose to Fongbu Buffalo, and I jumped ship.
Me too.
I got off, and I was like,
I'm not getting back on.
That's it. You know, I'm donezo. If they can't even take PvP, then that's it. There's no ways they're going to win the whole thing.
PvP is amazing. I think that's
no disrespect to them whatsoever, right? But it was more about like reading G2, and then all of a sudden they get that insane series versus SKT. I don't think it mattered who was in the final. I felt like they were going to do it. after making the bracket stage.
Yeah, to be completely honest, I think they played phenomenal in that final, but for me, the SKT Game 5 felt like the watershed moment,
Yes.
right? That's the one where you felt, now they got to push. And I like that they did it in their own style. They played the Syndra for perks. You know, they played the Pike again in that series. It really felt like it was something that was theirs to take, and they put it all on the line.
They absolutely did. They didn't hesitate. Game 5 against the best team in the world, and then they smashed Team Liquid. I mean, just fantastic. And we have the best team in the world.
They did it.
I did not anticipate that from Teddy, and already on the board, SK Telecom. Khan's coming in with a slicing maelstrom into all of G2. Caps is already down. Perks follows. Now Caps turns his attention to Khan. FLICKR's running low. He needs to get some regen. Whoa! He is popped by Caps. Caps is throwing out every single ability and turning his attention to Khan. It's a quadra kill for Caps, and G2 goes all the way to the steps of the fountain for a pentakill as G2 equalize the series at 1-1. Here comes FLICKR as well with the follow-up stun. It's a double. Deep flash is available. Teddy has used it. That's Mickey's ultimate. Slicing Maelstrom, though, has done so much work. Jankos and Caps are obliterated. The Nexus is being focused. SK Telecom lead the series 2-1.
Rare straight into the picks and bans for Game 4. And remember, if SKT win this, they are in the final.
Obliterated. Massive. Manages to steal the knob. FLICKR turns around.
This is the G2 classic. They never go for conventional when trying to end the game. They're split pushing right now.
Caps and Wonder are on the Nexus. They will not go quietly. The Nexus is being focused, but look at FLICKR. Nexus 1 or 2 more hits. Many more hits on. Wonder forces Game 5.
There's the Pike cover coming out from G2. Oh, they lock it in!
The top lane Pike is back.
Oh, here's Wonder. FLICKR's got flash available. He's rooted in place. Caught by Lissandra ultimate, and he's killed from below. G2 Esports have been gifted and donated a Baron from SKT. That's a dunk from Wonder. Death from below for the double, for the ace, for the Baron, and the base. The gap be damned. Where were you when the West rose up? Europe versus North America at the MSI final.
It's 11-2, and G2 cannot be stopped. Team Liquid members are falling fast and furious. G2 Esports will take Game 1. It is Cap who says he can get the kill and sends it back to Lissandra. In they go as he's still slicing Maelstrom, and it is just that, slicing up Team Liquid. Nice juke by Cap, but will be hit a little bit. Nice double stun comes in, ult comes in as well. He's got a lot of a FLICKR to play around with. They find that first stun, they find some daily, but Ignite means he will get the solo kill in the 1v2. And Caps tries it for Jensen, and here comes Mickey! G2 slaughtering Team Liquid. And G2 will pull back. That's a big stun. That's a big engage. There is no chance TL comes back from this. They're already on to the Nexus turrets. This is what peak League of Legends looks like, and it comes from Europe.
Let me take you on a journey, one of hope, fulfillment, but ultimately, despair. We start going to China, to the LPL, where Rookie, the star mid laner of Invictus Gaming, plays. You know, it was just a few months ago when he himself was lifting a trophy, when he was celebrating. But celebration wasn't the first thing on his mind. Deep down, he knew that would be the last time he would lift a trophy internationally. Because it was moments later when he discovered himself that G2 would be your MSI champions and that the era of Europe was upon us. We go across the Pacific to North America, the home of the best AD carry to ever play in the LCS. He will continue to add trophies to his collection, but there are two that will evade him, MSI and Worlds, because the era of Europe is upon us, and because in this moment, he realized there's a man with 10 years experience. He wasn't good enough to beat a man with 3 months to his name. We move on to Korea. FLICKR, the best player to ever play professional League of Legends. Look how happy he was then. A smile on his face, joy in his heart. But even then, he knew that his time was coming to an end. Because not long after, this was the scene. And you think he's crying because he lost a world championship? No, no, no. That's because from this moment onward, they would be calling him Baby Caps. And FLICKR, with that look in his eyes, knew that the LCK, its time was over. The era of Europe had begun. Players around the world shed tears in the wake of G2's dominance. But here at the LEC, as champions, all we have left to do is dance.
Wait.
What is your region?
Ew! Ew! Ew!
Yes!
Excellent job, Inter!
Rogue, definitely a team we have to look out for, but they have a tall order.
Vitality reminding us that they've earned their spot at Worlds.
Misfits show they may be out of playoffs, but they are still very much here to play.
SK Gaming will make playoffs in their first split, and they prove that they belong amongst the best teams.
Fnatic, they came to dominate.
Upset somehow won the Penta!
The perfect ingredients for how to make this team work.
OG have cut down Fnatic.
This is what peak League of Legends looks like, and it comes from Europe.
Welcome everyone to the opening day of the LEC Summer Split. All 10 teams go into week 1 with the dream. Are they wearing Versace gowns? Okay, I'm sorry. They are currently held by the people you saw there, MSI champions, G2 Esports. Also very nice to know is that Norskaren's family, they've traveled all the way from Norway to watch him play today, including his grandfather. We see him there, who is turning 80 in just 3 weeks. So that is absolutely lovely. And this is our wonderful studio. We are so happy to be back. Hello, everyone. I'm Sjokz, and I'm joined here by Vedius and by Frosk. After we shook it out, let's just say it. We were shaking it out just for the victory.
We had to shake off some of the excitement that we had coming into the split because, of course, it's not just about G2, it's about the entirety of the LEC. We have 10 teams, we have stacked competition, we're ready to get into summer for that fight, for that top spot in Europe.
Throughout the conversation, you know, people will debate, is Europe the best region in the world? It doesn't matter. We're a world-class region right now. You have a measuring stick in G2, who are the best team right now, that how hard you hit them shows how hard you can hit internationally.
And think about the spark that G2 G2 has caused now domestically. Mithy said just the other day that after seeing G2 win, he realized that the rest of them could do it too. And now there are hungry teams that are fighting for that top spot and want to prove themselves on the world stage.
Yeah, definitely so. That is exactly what it is. The teams that are now fighting for Worlds, they now have something huge to live up to, because you can't turn up at Worlds being the other two representatives, if we include G2 in that most likely, and just not do anything. The bar is set incredibly high. Before we dive into more of what we're going to do today, I do want to look back to Spring for just a second to wrap up everything. G2 are champions, OG, a very nice second place who had great development throughout the split, and Fnatic third.
I mean, the reality is you couldn't write a better fan fixture in terms of all of the favorites colliding at the top. It's like Origin, Fnatic, G2, but that doesn't count out the fact that Splice, Vitality, SK, Sjokz, they had really good moments throughout the split.
We had some amazing storylines. The upsets from XL, the crazy plays from Selfmade, so many awesome stories, and you can only hope that it's going to get even better as we now have the MSI champions in our league.
Yeah, let's see what happens today, and let's check out what we've got coming up on the first day of the LEC Summer Split. Now, first up, as an announcement, due to a delay outside of the team's control, the match schedule has changed with XL Esports and Schalke 04 now facing off in the last game of the day. So we've got a little switcheroo over there, but what are we most hyped about coming into day one?
That middle game, Sjokz. I'm looking forward to Rogue versus Misfits. You know, everyone's talking about the top teams, the Origins, the Fnatic.
What?
I want to see these two going at it, because the last time Misfits played Rogue, they lost. And now Rogue has a revamped roster, new players, new talent. It's the same Misfits.
But we have Fnatic versus SK.
I mean that is true.
That's like round 4. Let's go.
The team they haven't been able to beat yet. Well, we will talk about each team in depth throughout the day, but we did want to put the spotlight on some key roster changes. A lot happens, as it usually does, between spring and summer. So we wanted to take a look at some lineups individually, take a look at the changes and what we think of them. And I want to start out with Schalke 04. This time around, they have put Trick in the jungle. That is now a shared position between Memento and Trick, but today Trick is starting. What do we make of that?
Well, you saw on social media, it kind of felt like around the Schalke camp, it was quite obvious that there were issues in the jungle, especially with confidence. So maybe not even comparing Memento's playstyle towards Trick's playstyle, you have the inject of kind of new morale, and that can really reinvent a team.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how this Schalke looks now with the addition of Trick, largely because something we talked about was the first half of the split. If you only remember that part, this roster looks amazing.
Yeah.
And arguably, you'd hope that Trick comes in as an improvement to what was the second half, where we saw Schalke really fall apart as a team. So hopefully with this new invigorated player in Trick, we don't get to see LCK, we see the old MVP Trick make his return to the
That's the thing. No longer LCK Trick, LEC Trick.
We'll see if that is who turns up. And it is, of course, the Schalke special. Last year, they also changed their jungler in the half of the year, and they got all the way to the finals. So the only way is up. Secondly, we have Rogue. This is
Speaking of up,
a pretty intense. The only way is up clearly for Rogue. Unfortunately, had the worst split out of any team, I would say, in the spring split. Don't have to beat around the bush with this roster, and they made some drastic changes.
Yeah, they've brought that Ultra League squad in now. The team that had a lot of success domestically within Poland is now made its way to the LEC stage, and I already talked about how I'm very excited for this roster. In particular, the man in the mid lane, Larson. The last time LEC fans will have seen him was when he played for H2K back in 2018. He was the guy that helped that losing squad secure their very first win against Splice. So him returning to the LEC stage, I'm excited to see what he can do.
I did peek on the Polish league, just kind of get a feel for this roster. Now, all 5 of this lineup did play there, so you can kind of get expectations of their playstyle. For me, Woolite and Vander were really the big strong point. I know that the team puts a lot of emphasis behind Inspired as a jungler. I'm a little bit hot and cold still, but I really want to see how Woolite, Larson, and Inspired now measure themselves to the brand new LEC competition.
I'm actually hyped to see this lineup playing, especially versus Misfits in their first game of the summer split. The next lineup I want to talk about is XL. They, in the spring split, they had a couple of upsets, I would say, but they would never grow beyond that we've seen out of spring. So they made some changes. The question is, how happy are we about them, Frosk?
Oh, I'm going to say it's more of a sideways turn than necessarily what I wanted to see. I like the fact that they gave assurances to brand new talent like Jessica. Now, in an interview, Kasing said that he wanted to focus more so on his gameplay, and he felt like he was micromanaging a brand new ADC. By rejoining with Hjarnan, he no longer has to focus on what the ADC is doing. He can trust Hjarnan to do that, and he can focus entirely on himself.
For me, why I'm a little disappointed in this roster is because it feels like it's counterintuitive to what the goals of XL was, which to me very much felt like growing and development of new talent. And the fact that they replaced Jeskla for Hjarnan, a player who I feel we've seen his ceiling. Yes, in the short term, he might add value to this roster, but in the long term, I'm not entirely convinced that these changes will benefit XL. So I'm hoping that they prove me wrong, but right now, I'm not bought into the changes that they've made.
In any case, Mickey will not be starting today's special. Will still be in the mid lane for this lineup today, so we'll see how they can do. Finally, I want to talk about Misfits. I think we can all agree the biggest disappointment out of any team just because of the expectations put on that super team. With these guys in your roster not making the playoffs, you got to make a change.
Yeah, expectations were that we'd see some differences in this roster, but all the changes happened behind the scenes, the infrastructure. Coach Moose is back on the scene right now. They've kind of changed some of their coaching staff, but on top of that, they've added a couple of key players just behind these individuals so that if this 5-man squad doesn't work out, then there is pressure and young talent ready to take that spot.
That's my concern. Sometimes players need the carrot, sometimes players need the stick. Right now, running a 10-man roster, this feels very much like a stick. And at this point, when the expectations are so high for Misfits, I'm just afraid that that pressure might be that the guillotine is about to drop.
All right, we'll see how they deal with that pressure, but true champions normally do well when they are under pressure, right? This is why I haven't lost faith completely in Misfits yet, but can we agree this is kind of their last chance also from our perspective?
Yeah.
I think that's actually fair. At some point, you can't give Misfits the benefit of the doubt, especially with different rosters. This feels like it keeps happening to them, that they have these great moments, but they're unable to find that consistency over the course of an entire year.
Yeah, exactly. Now, a lot of changes in terms of teams, but also in terms of what we may see on the Rift, or possibly not. It has been 3 weeks since we saw play at MSI. 3 patches are now what we're starting with in the LEC, and we wanted to take a look at some compositions that we've seen around the world so far, starting with the LCS and what Team Liquid ran.
Yeah, so this was the representative in North America that went to MSI, and we wanted to see how the adaptations they made returning to the regular season. Turns out there weren't really that many changes from what we saw in the MSI meta. You're still seeing flex picks like the Sylas, you're still seeing safe top laners like the Kennen, early game aggressive junglers in the form of Olaf, and a very solid, not really investment-focused bot lane like a Xayah Rakan. So this is very MSI, this is very kind of expected, but on the other side, we are also seeing a lot of variation and creativity coming out from the likes of LCK teams. Right?
Yeah, it kind of feels like the guidelines have been set. We keep saying early game, mid game. There's so much gold between the scuttle crab, between the tower plates, between how quickly people are getting 2-item power spikes. At the LCK, they're just trying to color in differences, compositions creatively. They're looking at things like the Camille's and the mid lane and things.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at the Damwon comp, I believe, in just a second. Do you feel like this is the right approach from both sides? They are staying true to that early game and mid-game prowess that you should have, but are they just getting a bit more creative with it?
I mean, I think it's about adaptation in the long run. The fact that you've seen Sona and Taric be split up now, and they can work with the Sona, the Tahm Kench. That Lux support is making a massive splash right now.
I love the fact that we are seeing kind of both styles where there are these kind of meta champions that do kind of fit the mold and are still high in priority, but also creativity is being rewarded. Things like the Camille, like the Lux, I think is awesome to see. And what makes me even prouder as a European is that like G2 led the pathway, you know, with things like the Pike top. We don't really talk about the Vayne top, but it was there as well.
No,
like,
that didn't happen. What are you talking about?
But like this creativity, like as long as it is focused around being able to gain advantages either early or kind of spike in the mid game, I think that it can offer you a lot of success in how the game currently works.
Yeah, I'm pretty hyped just overall about how the meta is going to play out and how the games are going to play out. I think we're going to get some very high impact and high action games, but we also have to welcome a new Yordle's best friend to the Rift. It is Yuumi. It's a cat. Ender, how does she work? Meow.
Well, Sjokz, meow, right back at you. Why don't you watch and find out yourself? Well, Yuumi is the newest addition to League of Legends and is already seeing pro play around the world. She's a champion that can be extremely oppressive in the hands of a pro player, but tends to struggle more in normal play. To find out why we'll be seeing Yuumi picked, or more likely banned this weekend, let's break her down. First up, let's talk pros and cons, starting with Yuumi's W. The ability to go untargetable for as long as you want is incredibly powerful. In lane, she can use this to get to safety if she's ever in trouble, and in team fights, Yuumi never has to worry about getting assassinated, which makes her very unique against other enchanters. Yuumi also boasts a high effective range. Because of the way her Q and ult work in tandem with her allies, she's able to catch people out with a slow or root from far away. Again, among other enchanters,
enchanters, and many melee supports, she stands out for the range and reliability of her pick tools. Take this game between Victory 5 and Billy Gaming in the LPL. Yuumi attaches to Olaf, a frontliner, and works with him to land a Q for an 80% decaying slow. When Olaf runs in, Yuumi can also cast her ultimate in order to reach further into the V5 backline. Yuumi excels in mid-game fights like this by teaming up with her frontline. She can also speed them up to help them close the gap and put herself in a better position to use her Q and her ult to help engage the fights. But Yuumi can also get creative with her summoner spell choices. Because of Yuumi's attach mechanic, she doesn't really care about flash. This means she's freed up to take double combat summoners. Any combination of exhaust, ignite, or heal will prove effective, although you'll most likely be seeing heal with exhaust. But the summoner spell fun doesn't end there. Marksman paired up with a Yuumi support should be able to take teleport because Yuumi will follow the TP of an ally she is attached to. And your bot laner won't be missing out on heal either because Yuumi's got that covered. As for her weaknesses, Yuumi has poor peel tools for an enchanter. Yuumi's Q will only slow if it has traveled for at least a full second, and her ult is a delayed route, which means that if you can close the gap quickly and CC her attached ally, there's not much that she can do about it. Yuumi also has very poor defensive stats. If you can catch her out of range of an ally, she should instantly go down. But Yuumi's biggest weakness in normal play is her reliance on allies. It is important to know how Yuumi's Q works. The range on the spell is a fixed distance from her attached ally. This means that as her ally moves, the range of Yuumi's Q moves with it as well. This can be problematic when an ally steps backwards, causing her spell to fizzle out. But it can be also incredibly oppressive if her ally walks forward to make sure her Q is unmissable. Now, on patch 9.11, Yuumi's strengths greatly outweigh her weaknesses, making her scary enough to see in solo queue, but she only becomes more terrifying in pro play, where her reliance on allies stops being a weakness and instead becomes a strength. So don't be surprised if you see plenty of Cat and Book this weekend, Sjokz.
Yeah, I won't be surprised at all. I hope we see it, but what is, yes, if I fits, I sits. That's what that is. What do you think? Are we going to see a lot of Yuumi?
I'm expecting a high presence of Yuumi. I'm estimating around the 80% mark. I reckon some teams haven't put a huge amount of focus on her or a focus on actually trying to deal with her. So they may let her through the draft, and hopefully we see some kind of creative stuff coming out in the bot lane.
We will see that.
Giga broken.
Giga broken. I
Would
love
you say
how
that she's
like,
meow P?
Right meow.
I think like the emphasis falls on the P there, and I don't think that's what you're going for, so maybe need to rethink that joke. Any case, last week, you guys at home, we asked you to vote for who you think will perform the best in summer in our player ranking. This is similar to what you guys did before spring, so let's take a look at the results and who was in the top position for each role respectively.
Wait a minute.
Wait.
I mean, he can play Morgana support, he can play Pyke top, he can play Syndra mid.
Wait, he can't play jungle though. This is rigged.
This is rigged.
You
and
cheated, guys.
This is a little joke, obviously. The actual rankings for the top positions look like this, and one hasn't changed. What do we think about this?
I think recency bias has had a bit of an effect on our fans. Remember, guys, that you are voting for who you think will be the best by the end of the split.
So they're right.
And it seems like the expectations are that every single player will be top of the all-pro list by the time we reach the end of summer. And for us, I think you put it beautifully when you say what team ever has had all of the best players all at one time.
G2 Esports.
Apparently G2 Esports, which it's a safe bet because they dominated spring, so of course they'll dominate summer. But yeah, just a thought experiment. Think about all the League of Legends team. When has a League of Legends team ever had the best player in every position?
So you're saying there's a chance by the end of summer?
There's a chance.
There is a chance. Someone or a couple of people I want to talk about in particular is, of course, Caps. He has been the prodigy here for a couple of years, but I think in the last year and a half, maybe, he's really come into his own. And he's confirmed that with, some games against Excel, but also some games at MSI. He was a two-time MVP here in Europe and then got the MVP for the MSI final.
What I think is the most impressive thing about Caps is that while many fans like to joke about, craps versus claps, the thing that you can always say about this guy is he went from a World Finals to a different team to an MSI championship. Very few players, if any, have that kind of an accolade behind them, that you have that much talent, that you can go to a completely different team and turn that team into an international victor.
Is it going to get better?
It's just the idea that, internationally, we used to say, yeah, he's pretty good for a Western player. But in tandem with the likes of all G2, but Wonder and Caps in particularly, now it's, wow, Western players can be very solid. And that guy reminds me a lot of Caps, not that guy reminds me a lot of FLICKR. So kind of that redefining what excellence looks like.
Yeah, and you know, the fans at home voted for it, but I think every single member of that G2 squad was fantastic at MSI, and we'll see how they now do domestically, because that's always the question. Yes, you can win that championship, and you can win that international championship, but many teams have gone on to not win anything after that. Quick gamble, do you think that's going to happen to G2?
Well, I'm optimistic in the Golden Road. The ability to win both domestic titles, MSI, and the World Championship.
Woo!
SKT have came close to it, failed. RNG came close to it, failed. G2 now have the opportunity. Well, I'm biased, but I believe. We'll see if they can actually pull it off.
I like that you put the disclaimer. I'm biased, but I believe. Now, the first game that G2 Esports has is against Splice. Splice, for me, in spring, actually quite impressed me at several moments in time. I feel like they developed as the split went on. Unfortunately, only made it to round 2 of the playoffs, but I'm pretty excited to see them in summer.
I actually think if you're a Splice fan, you should be very excited about this team, because yes, Splice did kind of the classic thing where they settled into the 4th place position, but it felt like they actually turned a page, that you were seeing dynamic new strategies for them. And yeah, it was a single best of 5, but this team has so much potential in terms of the ceiling. Very young players, not inexperienced, just young players outside of that mid lane, and we just don't really know where the growth or the ceiling is for that squad.
And I will say that the Splice coaching staff as well have this ability to naturally grow talent. And I feel like last year, even though when we saw Splice not do well in playoffs, in the gauntlet, many considered them to be favorites, and they pushed a lot of those teams to the very brink, nearly qualifying for Worlds. And I feel like coming into this year, the fact that they already finished 4th at the beginning of the split, and now they're moving into this split with the same roster, with the same staff behind them, I feel like all you're going to see is more growth from the squad as they've all better aligned on how to play the game.
And I do want to put a magnifying glass on 2 key members from Splice particularly. Now, we'll get to Kabe in a second, but I do want to start with Xerxes, because the early game for Splice usually isn't complimented a lot because they do have one of the longest game times, but whether the early game is bloody or whether it's controlled is basically entirely around this guy, and he is a very creative and very unique jungler, not just in his champion picks, but in his pathing. I think he's severely underrated.
Yeah, I think he's an exceptional player. These are some of his stats from last split, and you can see that he was sitting there in 4th place for a lot of them. The likes behind players like Broxah, like behind players like Cole. Like, there were a lot of competition in the top end, and the fact that he was having so consistent early games, unfortunately they just couldn't quite transition it into the mid game, and hopefully coming into this split we're able to see more of a development in that area from Splice.
Yeah, we'll definitely see that. Another guy we always have to talk about when we talk about Splice is Kabe, who did wonderful again, I should say, in the spring split. What do you guys think about our whole late game carry only? What does Kabe qualify as for you right now?
I think if people are saying that he's just about late game, they really haven't been paying attention to Kabe. He was voted our all-pro ADC, and he pulled out things like the Draven, like the Vayne. He did try to play for that lane phase when he was given an opportunity, and then diversified his play pool further by pulling out the Vel'Koz, the Veigar.
I was really impressed with how Kabe developed last split. I feel like that he wasn't necessarily the flashiest player in the early game, but you only have to remember a couple of his Vayne games from last split where he really did pop off and carry his team. And again, I think that the reason why Kabe was put into those positions where he looked like that late game AD carry was because they had so many issues in their mid game where all of the responsibility fell on this man to be that carry. But I think that if they can shore up some of their mid game issues, then I think that we'll see a lot more consistency from the rest of the Splice.
Can you elaborate what kind of mid game issues was Splice dealing with?
So the biggest one for me was their inability to make decisions and execute upon them. So like, if they had control over the early game when it came to playing around Baron or setting up for it, they knew they had to pressure it, but they would never actually do it. They would just dance around a lot. Oh, we need to make sure we have the perfect setup. And if they didn't get it, they took too long, and then it got into this really awkward situation where they didn't have that same early lead that they had before.
Well, 2 of the most important pieces when it comes to the mid game are going to be things like the support and the mid laner, because often these positions will have a lot of pick tools or hard CC tools based on them. So if you want to be decisive, it's not about just moving your ward line, which Norskeren then needs to be in position, needs to understand understand exactly what he's doing, where he's going, because he's no longer just a, you know, we're going to kill the 2v2 and I'm going to protect my ADC. He has to kind of lead the charge there. I think as Humanoid and Northscaring get more experience, get more like tempo with this team, that's when you're going to just start to see the mid game cleaned up for Splice.
Yeah, and I hear you guys talking a lot about Northscaring and Kabi and Xerxes, but are we not in a meta where the solo lanes are incredibly important and you're going up against G2 Esports? So what do we make of that?
And that's exactly it, Sjokz. That's my biggest concern around this team, because we need to move away from talking about Xerxes and Kabi, and the focus now needs to be on Humanoid and Visage Hachi. The solo laners have so much more impact than they did, especially from what we saw at MSI, and being able to control the mid lane and move that pressure to everywhere else on the map is very important. So we need to see a better mid-jungle duo, especially if they want to compete with the likes of Caps and Jankos, who just had one of the, well, the best tournament of their career.
The best tournament.
Yeah, so Frosk, what are your expectations? What will it come down to? Or is G2 going to do one of those things where they just drop the ball in the first couple of games because they're still rolling out from MSI?
I mean, if you were going to beat G2, we were talking about this, it probably would be in the beginning of the split because burnout is a factor. We don't necessarily know how much the team has been practicing, how like their nose to the grindstone that they've really been going for. So maybe they drop a game here.
I mean, they've been at a restaurant, they've like put on suits, they apparently buying Versace
They went out to
gowns.
dinner.
Yeah, so they're doing all that, but I think that's kind of because I'm sure they know what they're doing and they're fully prepared.
One of the big things that I spoke to Grabs about was that they spent so long playing on patch 9.8, I believe it was, and now there's 3 new patches that they have had to pick up. So the thing for me that they've been very clear about, which was that it might take us a while to adapt, but we're hoping that coming into the start of the split, we're still looking very strong.
There's also the fact that Splice have shown that when they have time to prepare for an opponent, that's actually when they're the most terrifying. We always credit, I mean, we just talked about their 5-mans on the roster, but we also always credit the support staff behind them.
Yeah, definitely so. And what is so exciting about the beginning of the split is that we don't know what is going to happen. And as we are just a couple of minutes away from our first game, let's take a look at a first episode of EU Rising with our MSI and LEC champions, G2 Esports.
When I'm on the rhythm, you know we don't stop. Yo, with a high and a low.
Okay, so you've got G2 as your first game, actually.
We stand on the bones of the ones who came before us.
The goal is to dominate. We made this roster to make teams really scared of us, right?
They find that first stun, they find some damage, but Ignite means he won't get the solo kill, the 1v2!
G2's character, it's solo lane domination. You're in for right when you play with G2.
They are being taken down right now. G2 unwilling to be stopped. That's a big stun! That's a big engage! Oh my gosh!
When G2 enters a game, we don't aim to win. We aim to traumatize.
We are the bullies, you know, like the school bullies, stealing their lunch money, you know, and just taking the game away.
Miffy gets chunked out, the knockup, and the dash away from Mickey. Now Wonders are going to run down the rest of the team.
When facing G2, I would sit here right now having absolutely no idea what kind of game I'm about to play.
When I'm on the rhythm, you know we don't stop.
They were counted out, but here in the Ahoy Arena, OG have cut down Fnatic.
You want beef, then have a call. Looks like bling blow, ayy. Yeah, you can't hold me down. Yeah, how you like me?
Origin are crumbling to G2. Europe kneels to its champion, G2 Esports. The world awaits G2.
This is what peak League of Legends looks like, and it comes from Europe!
I already feel a huge boost in the confidence of my region and of our matchups against international teams.
We all really proved that we are pretty strong. We can look to reclaim the throne this time around.
We proved last year that we are contenders, and now it's time for us to go to Worlds.
Last split we were really disappointed, but this split we were gonna tear the LEC apart.
This is new era for SK Gaming. In summer we will only get better.
Trick is the type of player we needed in spring. With him, we will secure playoffs this split.
This split will definitely be our redemption.
The league has gotten stronger as a whole. Every team is able to contest every team.
So who wants to kill the king?
And welcome to Berlin, Germany, and day one of the summer split. I'm Quickshot, joined